So I believe it's time for us it's time for Africa. It's time for us to have self-knowledge, because it's self-knowledge that will help us to know who we are. In fact, we must look into our past to be able to forge into the future. And so we must address our past now, because I think it's making us to carry a lot of baggage. I think we are suffering because of the mistakes, because of the sins that were committed by our fathers. These are things nobody is ready to speak about. These are things that your leaders or our leaders, the so-called politicians, will not tell you about. The church will not tell you about. The school will not teach you, because nobody can teach you knowledge that will help you to overthrow them or to free yourself from them. And somebody say that if you want to keep somebody in prison, one of the things you do is to never make him know that he is a prisoner. Well, I believe, and I told people many times, that Nairobi is a prison, is a concentration camp, just in the same way that our fathers were held in concentration camps by the British. It's the same thing today. In fact, Nairobi, if you look into the history, our history, Nairobi was started as a labor camp by the colonialists. As so still today, because those who took over power continued with the policies of the colonialists. In fact, they humiliate us, they make us work for starvation wages. I mean, we do a lot of work, the donkey work, but our lives never change. We are still the same. I mean, we have been around this mountain for far too long. And I believe it's time for us to break from this mountain and go forward. To do that, we must have the courage to face our oppressors. To do that, we must have the faith and the belief that we are able to overcome. And I believe if our fathers were able to overcome the vagaries of colonialism, slavery, and all that, the opposition that we face today will surely fail. And so I was talking about the issue of poverty, and I'm insisting on that because if this nation is to survive its own folly, we must address the issue of poverty with immediate effect, or with normal delay. Yes, we must address this issue because I believe poverty is man-made. God did not create poverty. And as Mandela says, like slavery or apartheid, poverty is not natural, but it is man-made. And so it can be eradicated, it can be removed or abolished by the action of man. But the problem with this country or with this world is that there is no will, the soul, and the commitment to make poverty history. Poverty is the worst form of injustice, and so the greatest purveyor of violence is our own government or our own system. And so it's time for us to come and think together and reason together. I believe this nation has been held to ransom by people, a few ruling minority. That is very few people who feel so entitled, like they own us, they own this country. And from 1963, for 60 years now, they have used lies and to lord it over us, or to govern us, or to oppress us, and to exploit us. And I believe it's time for us to come up and search for the truth, because the truth is in there. I say it is in our hearts. Because truth is powerful, and truth is the foundation of any society. And where there's no truth, there can be no trust. And where there's no trust, there can be no society. And so, as I was saying, the nation must address the issue of poverty if it is to survive its own folly. The current problem arises because, although it is historically imperative that we make them move to the next level of equality, we find ourselves physically and mentally chained. And it is so sad, so very sad, that we have created a system that cherishes money more than people. And when property rights and profit motives are considered more important than people, then the giant triplets of materialism, capitalism, and tribalism are incapable of being conquered. The system that is in power all over the world is the system of capitalism. And this system is the same as, I believe capitalism is the same as colonialism. The evils of capitalism are the same as the evils of colonialism. Capitalism is another name for slavery, for colonialism. So we must fight capitalism the same way our fathers fought and stood up against slavery and colonialism. They paid for that to overthrow the colonialists from this country with their lives. So now we in this generation must fight capitalism the same way our fathers fought colonialism, because it is capitalism that has made us slaves in our own country. Capitalism is what allows corruption. I believe capitalism and corruption are twin evils. They are intertwined. Yeah, they are evils that work together, and so we must address one to finish the other. To save this country, we must address these issues. The issue of tribalism. Tribalism is the curse of this nation. I tell my people that tribalism is the shame of, is the burden of the poor man and the shame of the so-called ruling elites. Everybody should be ashamed because we have failed to address the issue of tribalism. Even a church in this country has failed to come out and condemn tribalism. And I believe it is the issue that has made our leaders to hold sway over us for all this long, without us being able to get any change, any real change, and we will not get it unless we address this issue. So I believe we have a problem with our churches. We have a problem with the religion that we have. I think the religion of today has failed to provide practical solutions to the problems of the day, to the problems of the people, and so it is not serving its purpose. And so we must look into that issue also. So we must. I'm calling upon all the conscious people. Let us come together. Let us brainstorm. Let us think. God gave us brains, and to be an insult to forego the use of our brains. Yeah, a mind. Somebody said the mind is a terrible thing to waste, and so we must come up and reason together and think together. And when we do this, we shall be able to ask the deep questions, the questions that everybody is afraid of asking. And I believe these questions that we are afraid of asking will turn out to be the most illuminating, because we must ask questions like, why are we poor? Majority of the people in this country poor 60 years after so-called independence. And I believe when we ask such questions, we are trying to question capitalism. And capitalism is a system that must die for humanity to survive. And I believe humanity has got a common will and right to survive. And so we must put our leaders to task. We must become active citizens. In fact, we have seen demonstrations in our country, but I wonder why these demonstrations, these protests are not bringing any change in our country. I believe it's time for us to ask why, ask ourselves questions. I believe it's because politicians are all the same. They think the same. It's like they are born by the same mother. And so we must come to see that politicians are not leaders. We must make a clear distinction between politicians and leaders in this country. And from there, we must make a case for a good leadership, a leadership of integrity and an upright moral character. We must make a case for leaders who are not, who are in love with justice, not in love with money. Leaders who are in love with the people, not in love with publicity. This is something that we must do. And to get these things, we must fight for them. I've said to my people that freedom is never given voluntarily. Or we must make our people understand this, that freedom is never given voluntarily by the oppressor, but it must be demanded by the oppressed. That change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but it comes through persistent work and tireless efforts of men and women who are willing to be co-workers with God. Every step towards the goal of justice requires struggle, sacrifice, and suffering. The tireless efforts of passionate men who are willing to be co-workers with God. We must do this. We must fight for justice. I believe that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. In fact, it's so sad that we are living in a society that is a society of violence, a society that loves violence and the taste of violence. Every day people are dying everywhere. We see people killing one another, and this is getting like we are coming to normalize these things. I mean, we are taking them as normal. They are not normal. We cannot allow ourselves to live in such a society. It's so sad. It's so very sad. So very sad that we have lost respect for the sanctity of human life. Today, people die and nobody cares. People are suffering everywhere because, as I said, because of this system called capitalism. Capitalism is a system that makes people to accumulate wealth, this so-called primitive accumulation of wealth. And we have come to make our people believe that they are poor because they are lazy. We have been made to believe that we are poor as a result of our own fault, but it's not our own fault that we are poor. We are poor because of corruption. Corruption has made us slaves in our own country, and we have normalized corruption. People are stealing billions, and we are not angry. We are not taking any action. There is no action taken against them by the so-called wheels of justice. And so this is so wrong because we cannot postpone justice. Like now, there is the issue of money that was misappropriated in Washington Gishu by leaders, by Madago, Senator Madago. There is Senator Madago, Governor B, and the deputy governor, Baratoto or somebody. And this issue, there's a girl who came out and spoke about this issue, Mazetaruz, you are a hero. And we need people like this. We need youth like this. Yes, we must come out and demand for our rights. We cannot allow this to continue any longer. And we must get angry. And so there must be a place where, a platform. We must create a platform where we'll bring all our issues together, all our grievances, and speak without being afraid of anything. Because as Masitaru said, we are dead anyway. They have killed us because they don't care. They don't care about the suffering that we are going through because they are corrupt, because they are stealing our hard-earned sweat, our taxes. And so these are issues that we must address. I think Africa is at a crossroad. Our country is at a crossroad. And we are the people who must come out and bring about issues and a debate, a candid debate that will make our people see that we have been living in darkness for so long. We have been living one big lie. In fact, we have not been living. We have just been existing. And now to be able to come and be able to be in control of our country, in control of decision making, we must demand for that. Somebody said, I think it was Nyerere who said that no country has got, Nyerere or Kimathi, I don't remember, that no country has got the right to make decisions for another country. No people has got the right to make decisions for another people. So we must come to see that we as a majority of the people in this country, we have to come out and say enough is enough. It's a big letdown that we elect leaders. Then when they get there, they turn against us. And this betrayal has really destroyed our lives. And we cannot say that we will wait for time to change things, because I believe time cannot change things. It is time is neutral. And so we have got to help time. And so we have to come out and become catalyst for change in this country. Karemi Ndudu, one of the forgotten heroes of during the Moi era, who was killed by the police for speaking out against injustice, against the excesses of the Nyayo system. He said that change, like death, is inevitable. I believe it's time for us to come out and fight for change. It is us. I believe this is a time. There's no other time. I believe we are the people. There are no other time that we are waiting for. And so I am advocating for people to come and join the movement. And the movement that we demand for either for our leaders to resign en masse and give us back the instruments of power. This we must think about it, because eventually it has to happen. We cannot allow people who are causing our misery to continue being in power. It's not right. I mean, they are playing games with our lives. They are destroying our lives where we keep silent. And I believe this silence is our greatest undoing. The silence is killing us. And I believe it is time for us to break the silence. Somebody must come out and break the silence of the night. where politicians are liars and thieves. Yeah, this is so. They have stolen our freedom, they have stolen our rights, they have stolen our land, they have stolen our minds, and they have stolen our future. Politicians are established in lies and failed promises. And so we are victims of deferred hopes and deferred dreams. And unless we come out and fight for these dreams to become a reality, we'll be in for a very rough time. We are going to see the situation going from bad to worse because we are afraid of coming out and speaking out. Yesterday I was at Bomas of Kenya, and I was not invited because no one can invite you when they know that your stand is a stand that will kind of ashame them, a stand that will arouse the concerns of the people or awaken the minds of the people, because our leaders hate and they are afraid of criticism. And I believe criticism is constructive, yeah, and we must allow it to happen. We must allow it to thrive if our society is to thrive also. And so I was at Bomas of Kenya, and I confronted the so-called leaders who are leading those talks, and I was not given much time, but I was arrested for speaking the truth, for saying that colonialism never really ended, for saying that poverty is man-made, and poverty is modern-day slavery. And I believe it's time for us to come all together. If we can have such kind of belief, that such kind of faith, that we can do that. I was really moved by the action of the people of Washingishu, led by the Said Masetaruza, another youth who came out, another parents who came out to protest. If we can make this anger collective and make it national also, and direct our anger to the, I believe, to the presidents now, because I believe for a long time we have never questioned the role of president in this country. We have never tried to question why they get away with so much. We have never tried to question why they oversee governments that take away the rights of the people, that take away resources from the people, that steal money from the people, or that allows corruption to thrive. And there's nothing that is done to stop this trend. And so I believe it's time for us to look at that issue. There was an American president, I don't know, I can't remember his name, I think it was somebody Roosevelt, who used to put a note before his desk, and a note read that the buck stops here. And so we must come to see that the buck in this country stops with the president. I've seen in other countries people coming out and protesting, like in Tunisia. People came out and they were angry. They went to State House and the president had to run away. I believe it's time for us to come out in a dramatic action, collective action, and say as the majority poor of this country that we are tired of what is happening. I believe another thing that has made us poor is that the land that our fathers were fighting for, that issue was never realized. I mean, the land did not revert to the rightful owners because our fathers died fighting for land. If you study our history well, they were fighting for land, freedom, and the abolition of Kipande law. That's what our history says. The so-called KLFA, Kenya Land and Freedom Army, they were fighting for land. But today I can ask you this question: where is that land? Why is it that we are living in slums? Why is it that we are crowding in a city like Nairobi and doing some menial jobs, some jobs that are so demeaning, yeah, jobs that are getting frustrating by the day, like Juakari and all that, because also they have destroyed our economy. I believe it's because we don't have land. The land that our fathers were fighting for did not revert to the rightful owners. It went into the hands of the people who were collaborating with the white man. And so that betrayal is still with us today. Those issues have never been addressed, and these people are not going to address them unless we force them to do so. And it's time for us to force them. It's time for us to come out and speak out without fear. It doesn't matter the consequences. We have to say, no matter the consequences, we have got to fight for our country. We have got to fight for our land. We owe, I believe that we owe our women and children, who are the most vulnerable members in any society, a life free of fear and violence. And as I said, we are a society of violence, violence everywhere, violence in the streets, in our homes, and this is something that we must address. Frederick Douglass once said that where poverty is enforced, justice is denied, and ignorance prevails in a certain section of people, feel that society is an organized conspiracy to rob, degrade, and humiliate them, then neither persons nor property will be safe. That's the situation of our country. That's why we have violence, because we have refused to address these issues. We are trying to push them under the carpet and to hide our heads in the sand like the proverbial ostrich. But I believe this is not time for complacency. This is a time for a tough and vigorous action. My people, I'm calling you out. We must come out and do this together. We must come out and speak out together. It is so easy. It's so difficult according to where you stand, according to how you take it. But I believe that with good faith and goodwill, we can do it. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, that faith is taking the first step, even when you cannot see the whole staircase. Christ himself said that faith, if you have some little faith, just like the size of a mustard seed, then you tell this mountain to remove from here and throw itself into the sea. I believe it's time for us to face politicians. In fact, I hate politics, though my heart. Yes, I hate politics because I believe politics is the bane of the much problems that we face here in Africa. Some great thinker once said that we were once humans until politics divided us, race separated us, religion disconnected us, and wealth classified us. Now we are no more humans. I mean, we have lost our humanity. We have become so inhuman. And now it's time for us to fight for a society of humanity. I mean, we must fight to restore our lost humanity and also our shared humanity. Because when I see people suffering there, when I see people dying there, I feel that like we die with them, because we are all connected in this world and in this life, tied together in a single garment, into a single garment of destiny, caught up together in an inescapable network of maturity. What affects one directly affects us all indirectly. For a strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you become what you ought to be. That's the strange interrelatedness of life. That is how God made it, and no man can change it. We have tried to change it, and we are suffering the consequences of changing that. So we must come together, my people, and think together. I believe that the education system also of Africa is a system that was designed to make us willing slaves. Yeah, we cannot question anything. We have become a people who are afraid of questioning anything or or everything another. We are afraid of asking the difficult questions. We are afraid of telling our leaders that this is not right, and we will not allow it. I mean, we have created a society of zombies. Yeah, zombies are people who cannot think, who cannot fight for anything, who cannot stand up for anything. And somebody say that if you cannot stand up for something, then you will fall for anything. That is what we have become. And we must come to see that we need to change that. I believe it's time for us to see that we need to come out and confront and what our leaders do. Because all the policies that they make affect us as a people. They affect our lives. And if they make bad policies, then those bad policies affect us directly. And so it's time for us to fight for a platform where we will be able to air our grievances. Like now, it's so sad to see leaders fielding against one another in this country. And when they go into the public, they spew words that are warlike or words that can create tension or even violence in the society. This is something also that we must look into, because like it was happening about these protests also, about the maandamano. I believe if these leaders were truly genuine about or being concerned about the people themselves, they should have come together and reasoned out and put aside their differences and see a way out. I mean, we must find a way how we'll be addressing our issues, our grievances. Because somebody said that when two bulls fight, it is the grass that suffers. Always when our leaders fight, when they failed, when we allow them to bringing their differences to us, it is us who suffer. It's vulnerable people, women and children who suffer. So it's time for us to come and look at that issue. Like now, the issue of the deputy president. I think yesterday he spoke was that we are not right to speak in the public. I mean, was that can create tension and some kind of violence and in our country or in our society. And so we should condemn those things, and we should not allow them. When they speak like so, it's like they are being insensitive to the people who have suffered. Like going to a funeral and politicking there, I believe it is not right. It's something that should not happen in a civilized society. Because first you have got to be sensitive to the people who have lost their loved ones. So it's not right for politicians to be given a platform to speak in funerals and when they speak words that create a lot of disharmony in the society. So these are things that we must condemn. Also, our society is so tribalistic, so people interpret such words in a very, very tribalistic manner, and that is why I would say that we must address the issue of tribalism. Tribalism is a disease that must die. Tribalism is a disease of the mind. Tribalism is a state of the mind. Tribalism is a ploy which politicians use to perpetuate themselves in power. The ruling political elites have historically used tribalism to divide and conquer, because divisiveness creates hate and thereby allows the power mongers to vie for control over the weak and the uninformed. And so, as I said, this issue we must address it, and we must address it urgently. And also, we must come en masse and support people and platforms and people who are trying to bring up these issues. We must believe in ourselves. We must believe that we can change. I believe that we must become the generation that will dig the grave where the evil of tribalism and tribal divisions will be entombed. And I believe when we do that, our country will heal, because this country is in great need of healing. Yes, we need to heal from all the violence, all the injustices that we have suffered for all these years. For 60 years, we have never been serious about addressing the injustices committed by our leaders, by the people in power. That is why they go on and commit more injustices, because when you postpone justice, you allow people to commit more injustices. And so we must come to see that time has come for us to address that issue. So, as I was saying, I find that the issues that poor people have been ignored for so long in this country, and the people themselves are also complicit in their own oppression, because we follow leaders either for handouts or because they belong to our tribe. And that's another issue that made us okay, that has denied the right, also the moral right to demand for service from our leaders. That is why our leaders have gotten away with so much for so long. And so I believe it's time for us to come and see that this issue of handouts and supporting leaders because they belong to our tribe, this issue must come to an end. We must elect leaders who are there out to serve us, people who have the interests of the people at heart. But I don't believe that this crop of leaders who have been ruling us for 60 years now, or from 1963, have got the intention to do that. They don't have. That's why I'm agitating for change, real change, true change. And somebody say revolt is changing is a revolution that, or a change that merely moves people, but a revolution is a movement that changes people and institutions. So I believe the only way out for this country, the only way out for our country, the only way out for our time is a revolution of the mind, a revolution of ideas, a revolution of values, A true revolution of values will cause us to question the fairness and justice of many of our past and present policies. A true revolution of values will cause us to look honestly at the glaring contrast between wealth and poverty, and we shall say with a righteous anger that this is not right. And to do this, my people, we must come out of our fears and out of our comfort zones, as we must decide to face our fears. Somebody said that fear is a reaction and courage is a decision. Mandela himself said that he found out that courage is not the absence of fear, but it is the triumph over it. So we must face our fears. Most of our fears are imaginary, and that is why we are never able to confront the lies that our leaders peddle to us and have been peddling to us. All these leaders have been getting into power using lies and invoking tribal emotions among their people. This is what has been happening. This is the bread of our politics that we have in this country, and it's so sad. That's why I'm saying we must change the way we do our politics. We must change the way things have been done from 1963 up to date if we are to get a society that will address the issues of the people. And it's time for us to address the issues of the people, because like now, the money is there. This country has got of resources, but these resources are in the hands of very few people. Our economy is still controlled by the West, by the IMF and the World Bank, those Bretton Woods institutions, because still we are still being colonized, so we don't have any say or any right of our resources. That's why you see, like in places like Congo, there are a lot of minerals. Even here in Kenya, we have a lot of minerals, and these minerals do not help our people. They end up, in fact, we end up killing each other because of them, because of this wealth that God has given us. Instead of using this wealth to give our people decent lives, because of what I call external influence. And this is something that we must address and come out and now know. I believe it's because we have lost our identity as Africans, and we are afraid of coming out and following the truth, and it's the truth that will bring back our lost identity. And as Africans, I believe that together we shall be very strong. Somebody said that when the good people of Africa, when the poor people of Africa will unite, the whole world then also will unite. And I believe that when poor people speak out, they are not only speaking out, they are erupting. They are talking about all the injustices that they have been facing all through. That's why I told my people that change in this country will come out of, it will be brought by the people on the street, people in the street, the poor people. When we shall unite, we shall be able to change this country. Because unity is power, and without unity we cannot achieve much. But when we are united, we'll be able to achieve what we desire. Because I believe the heart of every man desires freedom. In the heart of every man there is that yearning for freedom, that yearning for justice, that yearning for equality. We must stop looking the other way. We must feel concerned, greatly concerned at every injustice that is happening, at every evil that's happening, like corruption, tribalism. And as I said, we must address these issues and address them once and for all. We must address them deeply and with a purpose of seeing that they, after we address them and be determined to change, we'll get the so desired change.